Well, welcome everyone. Good to see you here for our weekly webinar for the Escalate Mobile Learning Special Interest Group. And we've got a panel this morning so far of Chris Dineen from CSHE from Melbourne, Neil Cowie from Japan, Tom Worthington, Canberra, and James Burt from the Gold Coast, sunny Gold Coast. James is still in a t-shirt. There we go. So today we're sort of looking at a couple of ideas. I did circulate an email, and Chris probably didn't get it, but around a Web2 typology that Matt Bauer has just published and was keen for us to have a look at. So I thought we could have a bit of a discussion around that today. And Tom Worthington has also suggested talking about a hackathon that he's involved in. So it'd be really interesting to hear about that. And of course, if we got time, then it would be our little 2-minute tips each. If anyone's managed to think of a great mobile learning tip that they might like to share, that'd be cool as well. So perhaps I'll just launch into having a look at Matt Bauer's typology, and we can just sort of have a bit of a discussion of it and some bit of feedback, see what people think and its relevance to mobile learning. So I'll just jump into some screen sharing here. And make sure I choose the right screen. So hopefully you can all see that. Give us a nod if you can see the article there, Typology of Free Web-Based Learning Technologies. No? Okay, so I've obviously not pressed the right button. Share, there we go. Okay, now it should be good. I'm pushing the wrong button again. Yeah, so Matt published a Typology of Free Web-Based Learning Technologies in 2015. Matt Bauer, who's now at Macquarie University, I think. And he's just done an update and published this year. I think it's been shared through EDUCAUSE. Yeah, just a sort of a way of categorizing different types of free tools, online tools. And part of the classification is that they need to be free, obviously, and they need to be web-based. So if you have to download software to use them or an app, then they weren't included. So Matt's article, which is freely available, you can click the download link. I've already done that. There we go, preloaded. Has a bit of a chart of various tools. He's got 15 categories. So there's web conferencing tools, text-based tools, image-based tools, audio, video, multimodal, digital, storytelling, website creation tools, knowledge, organization and sharing, data analysis, 3D modeling, coding, assessment tools, social networking, and learning management tools. And then off quite a few of these, he has little subgroups as well that he's categorized. So it's a very sort of a pragmatic guide, and what he's done is then gives examples of these tools and a bit of an overview of them, very, very brief, but provides links. And there's quite a few there that people have probably heard of and had a bit of a go with, but then there's a whole lot that you may not have as well. So it's quite a useful sort of a overview of what are these types of tools and what are some examples that you could have a bit of a go at if you wanted to. So from that perspective, I think it's quite useful. I guess what I'd like us to discuss is what's the overlap with mobile learning, and are there maybe some categories that are missing? So any thoughts from our illustrious panel? Neil?
I can't seem to see anything in there related to mobile tools. There's definitely nothing there related to like gaming engines to create simulations for immersive environments, unless I'm missing it.
Yeah, I thought that was a category that that was glaringly missing as well.
Yeah,
Was there's
and given his
no
interest
AR,
in
VR, no
VR and
immersive.
AR, I'm very surprised that he doesn't have anything related to immersive environments and production of immersive environments.
Yeah, so he does mention under one of the categories, and I can't remember which one because I just flicked through it quickly. Google Tour Builder, but that's about as close as this current typology goes towards that sort of immersive reality environment.
And it's not like it hasn't been around for the last, 7 years. What about virtual worlds? All the stuff with that
Second Life type of thing.
Co have worked on, and Second Life and other game-based environments as virtual worlds. I don't see anything on that either.
Yeah, that seems to be the biggest gap that I can identify just very quickly. But I'm just kind of wondering whether that, depending on the categorization sort of remit that they had, whether that fell into, didn't map into what they were doing, whether there were some apps that you need to download or software you need to download to make those work and therefore didn't fit into this typology. I'm not quite sure. But there are some very simple web-based VR tools and creation tools like SeatPeek, which is fully web-based. You don't need to download an app for that. And
Mozilla Hub,
yep.
which is fully web-based.
Yeah, and Google Tour Expeditions.
Expeditions. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's probably some feedback we can give them. I definitely think there is a 16th category missing. It may be that what he did was using the original 2015 categories and just sort of refreshed it rather than adding to it. But I guess my thoughts with the overlap to mobile learning was that pretty much the tools that people would use for most of these, even as a web-based tool, is your smartphone. Okay, so at least your initial go at trying something new, most people are going to try and see if it works on their smartphone before they have a go on their laptop or their desktop.
Just looking at all of them, and I reckon you could use your smartphone for every single one of those things. Maybe the 3D model creation is probably the only one that would be a bit tough, although you can do photogrammetry.
Yep. He does go into a couple of video streaming things like Twitch, Discord. I think he mentions Discord. There's no mention of GitHub as a sharing portal. I thought they would have made it under coding tools.
Yeah.
Neil, did you want to add anything? It's very impressive kind of overview of all the tools that that you can use. And I was thinking of I hadn't seen this until you shared it yesterday. I was thinking of showing it to my colleagues. It's a little bit too sophisticated, I think, for a lot of teachers who have only just gone online. Ones who are kind of are already interested in online working or have become interested because of the current emergency situation. I think it's a really good way to teach them about other opportunities that do exist, and that they could, especially the follow-up links, where you can go and find out what these different tools are.
Yeah, I think as a starter point of if you want to use a discussion forum beyond the LMS, then there are a couple of examples linked there, like ProBoards. It's quite useful pragmatically that way.
Yeah, so thanks for sharing it. I think I like you flick through it and I think you automatically look for things that you've used yourself.
Have my favorite tool made the list. Yeah.
and I'm sure some there'll be some like quiz or competition to see how many people have got most of these tools, and who's got the most. But very, very interesting, very useful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I think it's always good too, as a very pragmatic starter, to give people links to stuff that works and is not going to force you into having a whole lot of random ads and dodgy stuff as well. So even just from that perspective, it's quite useful.
I guess the next thing would be if they could be grouped in some way, and this is a collection of tools you might use, because otherwise it can just be so overwhelming with the number of tools.
Yep.
Like case study based or something, or grouped around a workflow.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think, if there were some example links, maybe from each category of this is how this is being used in this discipline or context or something.
That's what immediately sort of struck me. And I'm seeing this with fresh eyes because I wasn't originally on the email, but when I saw that map that you put up at first, Tom, I thought this is great if the perspective you're looking at this from is mapping out the particular technologies. So categorically, that's great. But from a functional use perspective, it might very well be, well, what within the curriculum are you attempting to do?
Yes.
And where do these technologies relate to those particular functions or those particular desired activities?
Yeah, exactly. So where's the teaching learning link?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think Matt does in the intro in the discussion make a direct link to collaboration and sharing. So basically social constructivism as a pedagogical sort of starting framework, that most of these tools will support that type of pedagogy. But he doesn't sort of delve down too much lower than that. It's very much a quick overview and categorization. Anyway, I thought it was interesting, and it's a chance to perhaps learn about some new tools that fit into those different categories if you haven't already. I think, like James, I'd really like to see an immersive reality or something, 16th category that seems to be missing as far as I can tell. So yeah, I thought it was interesting to have a bit of a look at, and there's certainly a lot of overlap with mobile learning there. So I might stop screen sharing at this point and then hand it over to Tom Worthing to talk about his hackathon and the links there with mobile learning. So over to you, Tom.
Okay, I should turn on the microphone before I start talking. Okay, I'll try and do the sharing thing. Let's see if we can get this to work. Okay, you should be able to see
that's all good.
A picture of the Defence Minister. Yep.
Yes, that's working.
Okay. It's not my hackathon, I should point out. A few days ago, I had an email from the Australian Computer Society saying that since I was involved in their previous hackathon, did I want to be in this one? So what's happening is, and I wasn't sure it wasn't all a scam until I read a press release from the Defence Minister about this. So what's happening is the issue of supply chains has come to the fore with COVID-19. Can we get not only medical supplies, foodstuffs, fuel, everything we need in an emergency? So what's happened is the Australian Department of Defence and the New Zealand Defence Force are running a hackathon starting at 7 p.m. this evening.
Yeah, and kind of sort of made me think, is this real or not? Because it's not sort of something that you normally think of the Defence Forces as kind of outsourcing, do you?
No, I was kind of surprised, and I heard about this from the internal ACS and thought, oh yeah, wonder if this will happen. But it is happening. So the idea is that members of the public, Australians and New Zealanders, are being invited. So this isn't just for, you know, large military industrial complex companies. So you can, so there's a website. Let me just click on that, see if it works. This is my slow wireless modem here.
The infamous Australian NBN.
No, I'm not using the NBN. I'm using Telstra 4G. Anyway, you can click on a link and put in their details to sign up for the thing and then receive an invitation. So it's that simple, and there's lots of organisations involved with the thing. It uses the same format as one that was in April, Flatten the Curve hack, which was specifically about COVID-19. What bright idea did people have? This is run in the same format as hackathons normally are, where there's a topic and there's a challenge. People are invited to form teams, come up with an idea they want to work on, and they will be given extra information and challenges over a period of between a day and 3 days to work on it. These things are judged. They usually produce a video to go with it, and there are prizes for it. The Flatten the Curve hack, which I was mentoring in, was the first one I've done purely online. I'm used to these things where it might be run in a university building and hundreds of people arrive to take part, and they can stay there continuously 24 hours a day for several days to work on the project. Often these are university students doing these things. This one's being run online. For Flatten the Curve, they primarily use Slack, which is an interesting, slightly daunting prospect where they'll have a Slack area for the hackathon, and there'll be channels for organisers, mentors. I'm a lead mentor this time, so there'll be a separate one for us to have discussions, one for every team, etc., etc. And for 72 hours, your computer or your mobile phone will be bleeping every few seconds, if you're not careful, telling you some new announcement. Oh, we're having trouble with this. Please remember to deposit your update reports now, here, etc. So it's an interesting exercise in doing things that normally with a project might take days, months, or years, in sometimes hours. So I have had a little bit of experience this back when I worked at the Defence Force headquarters in the 90s, where I was plotting online using the internet with people in academia and industry about how we could get the government using the internet and the web, which were new technologies then. And we would go online and work out what to do. And then I would tell the Defence Department, someone would tell who was in the government, would tell the government because they were in Parliament, someone else would tell academia, and we'd sort of all steer this thing. And the media called it the internet cabal. The process here is a little more regulated and designed, but this process I described here in the 1980s was officially endorsed by my boss, said, yes, that's all right, go off and do that, because it's in our interest and the public interest. So this approach is not that unusual for defence forces to use, where you want personal involvement by people informally across channels to get things done quickly, because they need things done. Exactly what the Flatten the Curve will produce was more software based. This one's about logistics. There may well be logistics type things involving tech. So how do we coordinate things better online, use mobile phones for working out what needs to be where, but it might also involve policy as well. And one of the things about this sort of activity is it's not really so much about inventing a brilliant new idea or piece of software. It's about getting people together to think about something who then later on might decide to work together on whatever it is. And there is an aspect where the sponsors involved see who involved is good at doing something and later on offer, if they're a company, a contract, or if they're a individual, offer to employ them. So it's mainly about people with bright ideas rather than, oh, we have invented a way to fix logistics.
So it's almost like a subtle recruiting, way of finding people with the right sort of skills and.
Yes, and if at a face-to-face one of these, you actually see people like venture capitalists wandering around, looking at teams, and they might say, "Oh, that's a good team. We don't like their idea, but we like the team, and they work well together."
So something like this might be a really good experience for students, as a kind of like an authentic, but in some ways almost, it's competitive, almost gamified sort of learning experience,
Well, yes, and in Canberra for about 9 years, we've been running one of these for university students across the universities called Innovation ACT, and students form teams, work on a business idea, and ANU and the University of Canberra have incorporated that in formal studies as well, where the team can enter the competition, but they can also use some of that as their assignments and assessable work.
Mm-hmm.
So commonly at the moment, I teach computer project management students, and the project they might be working on might be something that's come out of the innovation competition, which is based across the road from the campus. And a lot of universities have those sorts of startup centres, entrepreneurial centres associated, and they run these sorts of competitions fairly commonly. And we're using essentially the same set of tools, things like Slack and GitHub and Kanban type things, for teaching the project management students at the university how to coordinate a team. And at the moment, the parallels are closer because the campus is closed. The students are using things like Slack for their coordination of their team projects this semester online, and then the tutors are meeting with them using video conferencing in Zoom to see how they're going. And then the examiners look in the repositories of these tools to see what work individual students have done, as well as the team, and assess them. Because the students will say, oh yeah, I was working on that all semester. And then you look in the repository, which date and time stamps every contribution by every individual,
mm-hmm.
and you see they didn't do anything all semester. They only did it a week before the end of semester.
Yeah. I guess that's where I see the core overlap with something like this with mobile learning, is those tools are probably going to be accessed, the Slack app on your phone, etc., and you're going to be sharing and collaborating using your smartphone or tablet. But also makes me think, like you're talking there, Tom, about providing evidence of work, that maybe some form of e-portfolio built into these types of projects would be very valuable.
Well, we actually, on the mobile front, often you'll see the team sitting there physically together, most of them, but there might be someone who can't be there physically, and they're on the mobile device on a video conference.
Right.
Or they're all sitting there individually working, but even though they're sitting together, they're still using their mobile device to pass notes to each other, so they don't interrupt others there. E-portfolios, we tried e-portfolios in the past at ANU for the Tech Launcher group team project, and we found that formal e-portfolio tools did not work terribly well. We were using Mahara.
That kind of part of the ethos of the types of people involved in these sorts of projects, or just the tools that were chosen?
I think the tools were too cumbersome, and they didn't allow the joint working as well. And these students are used to using tools where they might deposit hundreds of different items a day, and by the end they'll have tens of thousands of things in them, whereas an e-portfolio is trying to produce a polished final result.
Yeah, that's right. So it's about choosing the technology that's actually going to do the right job, and also is authentic to, you know, that context, rather than pushing a technology just because perhaps we know it, or, you know, we've used it educationally, but it doesn't actually fit.
And what we tend to do is say to them then, okay, from all of that, produces a report, which will be a conventional document using a word processor. Interesting challenge to present results, because normally you would say to the students, produce a poster, and we'll invite everybody to look at your poster, but we can't do that physically now, so they're presenting online. And you think, okay, well, the viewer may well have a mobile device, so do we change the display from landscape to portrait? Do we use a square format like some of the video tools use? Do we present it not as a flat display, but as an interactive, either as a video or as an actual interactive thing that the viewer can interact with? But then, as someone who's trying to assess things, you tend to want a static sort of thing you can print out and staple in a book sort of thing. So it's a challenge for those people as well.
Yeah, so it comes down to the skills of the assessors as well, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but this is all starting at 7 p.m. tonight.
Cool. Oh, let us know how it goes. Maybe you can give us a bit of a report back on it.
Yes. Well, the previous one, I wrote a few little posts in the blog on how the various tools, the bewildering array for tools, as well as Slack. They had Piazza, which I'm used to using at the uni, Discord, which is a weird name for a tool for coordinating things, and so on. So I'll probably write a few little reports and maybe give you an update.
That'd be great. Now, I'm quite interested about Discord. I haven't played with it myself. I don't know if anyone else has. It sounds like you probably have, Tom, but it's interesting that a tool that was developed for streaming gaming has become so now widely used for, you know, collaboration beyond, you know, just live streaming of gameplay, of online gaming.
I think, I mean, I didn't use it much, and I'm not a video gamer, but I think the idea is it just acts as an adjunct. So rather than trying to do everything for you, it just sits alongside whatever application you happen to be using. And it seems to be fairly efficient, so you can do it to a lot of people.
Right. So it's
I just say there, Tom, that it's unsurprising to me, because if you think about which industry has pushed the boundaries of online distributed video, voice, communication, 3D assets, streaming, etc., there's none other industry greater than the gaming industry that has done that. And therefore, the tools that have been integrated in games over about the last 30 years are now starting to be integrated and essentially spin-offs, because most of these tools are actually owned by the major gaming publishers and companies themselves. And like House Party is owned by Epic Games, and which are all, led back to the main publishers. So it's really unsurprising to me that this is the case. I think that it's more that these tools can now be spun out of those, and they've got such a good quality of testing that has been tested by millions of people over many, many years, that they're actually quite high quality tools.
Yeah, good point, James. And I think maybe, a lot of times educationally we talk about gamifying learning and bringing in those aspects of competition and team-based and gamifying. But it's always a bit of a, I suppose an add-on rather than starting off, well, why not use game tools if you're wanting to gamify something? Yeah. Oh, well, great. Thank you, Tom. We probably need to wind things up a bit, but Neil had a little 2-minute tip for us around Flipgrid. So I thought we'd just hand over to Neil for a couple of minutes, and that would sort of wind us up for today. So, Neil.
Oh, okay, Tom, thanks. I'm not sure how many of you were listening to me talking about Flipgrid 2 or 3 weeks ago. If you haven't used it, it's a sort of a video sharing app from Microsoft, and it's free for educators. And the teacher posts a video, and then students can respond to that video and post theirs. And then each student can then give another video feedback to each other. So if I just share my screen, this is one class, and 3 weeks ago I had posted one video, and I had about 2 videos. And if you look here, it said that there are 52 student videos and over 2,000 views. So I'm just amazed at how many times the students have watched each other's videos. So, and then total 50 hours of shared learning. I don't know how, meaningful those figures are, but it still seems like quite a lot of students are looking at each other's videos. So that's one very positive experience. And then what I wanted to add today was just that when you make a Flipgrid video, if you want to, you can share your screen, which I didn't know that 3 weeks ago. So that's another tool that the students can use to teach each other something, for example, as Tom did today, taught us about the hackathon. You can also use a whiteboard like Zoom. And again, that could be good for students, explaining something to each other. So as I use Flipgrid more and more, I'm just beginning to see more and more possibilities for it. And it seems incredibly easy for me and the students as well, very importantly, to use. So I'm very, very happy with it as a tool.
Great.
Neil, are you using the free version? Is it the free version, Neil?
Well, it's the educator's version. So it is free for me. I don't know how that would vary from somebody who signed up, who's not belonging to a school. So sorry, I don't know the difference between the two.
No, it's all right. I was only asking because we've got Microsoft, like Sydney Uni has got everything with Microsoft, but it's not one of those things we can access. Maybe it's hidden. Most of the things are disabled, but yeah, it's worth checking it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Neil.
Oh, thank you, everyone, on our panel today. We are a little bit one-gendered today, unfortunately, but our female members, obviously, we're busy today. But yeah, great tips. Thanks, Tom, for your overview of the hackathon, and thanks for everyone's thoughts on Matt Bauer's typology. I'll share this video with him, and he can take on board our feedback if he likes. So thank you once again. We'll finish the recording there and the webinar for today, and we'll catch you all again next week.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you, everyone.